And so we're working on bringing down basically the cost of what life requires for people.
I actually don't have anything for you at the top. I know you guys are always excited to hear what I got to say.
California has become the first state to guarantee free health care to all low-income immigrants. It's part of Governor Newsom's operating budget, which pledges to make all low-income adults eligible for the state's Medicaid program by 2024, regardless of their immigration status. Nationwide, low-income families get free health care through Medicaid, but the federal government doesn't pay for people who are living in our country illegally. The move will cost about $2.7 billion every year.
How did the president go from blaming high gas prices on Putin to big oil to small business owners now?
Well, here's the thing about that, Peter, is when you look at, as of this morning, when you look at the crude oil, and when you look at wholesale oil prices as well, they've declined about 15%. And so retail gas prices, however, have only declined just about 3%. So what the president is saying is that everyone along that chain, along that production chain line, needs to make sure that they're doing what is possible, their part in bringing down the cost for the American people. That is what we're asking. Consumers should not be the first to pay and the last to benefit.
Jeff Bezos says the president's tweet about this is either straight ahead misdirection or a deep misunderstanding of basic market dynamics. Which is it?
As you know, we completely disagree with Jeff Bezos. Look, we will continue to call on everyone along that distribution chain, as I just mentioned, from oil companies to refineries to distributors to retailers to pass their lower cost through to consumers. That is what is important to make sure that we should not make, again, consumers pay first and get that relief last.
Half of that increase started prior to the first Russian soldiers arriving. You can't blame it all on them, right?
What about the other half?
Well, that
no,
was.
What about the other half?
No,
that's a pretty important half.
Well,
and
no,
then,
but that half before we had run up. Your administration has blamed this on the war, and that was certainly a big factor. But gas prices had gone up 50% already before the war. So to me, that's half of the blame, not all the blame.
Solutions from the oil companies and so forth. Has there been anything brought back to the president for him to review or any updates on that?
So, as you know, that meeting went very well. We even heard from some of the CEOs who came out of that meeting as well. We did a readout. We are still looking to get to solution. We think that was a first step. There's going to be more conversations. We just don't have more to share on the next steps, specific next steps, and what has been presented to the president. But clearly, we're looking for solutions.
But when it comes to pilots, and I think the retirement age remains 65, should it? Would you be for increasing that to increase the pool of available workers then who could fly these planes that oftentimes they're begging to find pilots?
Look, I'm much more interested in raising the bar on things like compensation and job quality than lowering the bar on something like safety.
Do you think you compromise safety with an old? I'm sorry, Secretary. Are you compromising safety with a pilot older than 65? Because a lot of people say 65 is the new 55, and we have a president who's almost 80. So what's the big deal if we went up a few more years?
Look, that regulation is there for safety reasons. I haven't seen any piece of information or data that would suggest that the reasoning.
Why do you think so many members of your own party, elected leaders, voters, activists, pundits, why do they all seem to, in this moment, disagree with that assessment?
Well, I can't speak for them. I can only speak to what we're trying to do. I can only speak to. Again, I'm not going to speak for them. I would go directly to these folks, these activists, and our Democratic colleagues, and speak to them directly. You know, this is a president that has been working tirelessly every day in and day out since he's walked into this administration.
With the criticism of the president, is this administration concerned about how the Democrats will perform in the midterm elections?
Well, as you know, I can't talk about the midterms from here. That will get me into big trouble. I'm just saying I got to be careful about that.
Expressed any concern?
I got to be careful about that. He has said, if we are in a position where Congress does not act, then the American public should make their voices heard. They should make their voices heard at the ballot box.
Has also said this would be a major mistake to ease those tariffs. So how is the president weighing those concerns among labor unions and some Rust Belt Democrats against other people who are saying these tariffs should be lifted?
Look, there are a lot of different elements to this, especially since the previous administration imposed these tariffs in such a haphazard way, in a non-strategic way. So we want to make sure that we have the right approach. And again, his team is figuring it out, and they're talking through this. And once we figure out the right approach,
there's broad frustration among voters we've talked to, among many Democratic lawmakers, that you had this unprecedented situation of more than a month of knowing pretty much what was going to be likely in the ruling. It was heard, there's a lot of frustration of why weren't those orders cased, and here we are about 2 weeks later talking about when that next wave might come out. I mean, what's your response to that general frustration?
Well, I would look, I'll say this. We understand that the frustration. The president has been very forceful in saying that we have to take action. He cannot just do this alone. Congress needs to take action.
About 2 hours later and spoke a little more. Was that because he or his team felt he had initially missed the mark?
No, he felt that he needed to speak on that himself. That was his own decision to move.
Statement, I mean, he came out and he verbally said at the 4th of July, you all heard what happened today. Things will get better still, but not without more hard work. And then 2 hours later, that same evening, he came out and said a bit more.
My answer is still the same. He wanted to make sure that he had an opportunity to speak to this, and he took that opportunity that second time. He spoke to it very briefly, as you just stated, the first time, and the second time, happening, and he gave a moment of silence. That was him. That was something.